So you've probably seen these Albinauric creatures cartwheeling around various locations, but they are mostly known as a popular rune farming method at Mogwin's Palace. But how would their build compete in the lands between, against players and bosses? I'm Bitesized Otaku, and in this video, I'll be taking their equipment out for a spin and seeing whether or not we can make any improvements to their build. But, like the video, and give it to me bite-sized. So the vanilla version of the Albinauric wears the dirty chainmail, and we can tear off one's head for an Albinauric helmet, giving us abysmal poison defense. And the Albinaurics also use a multitude of weapons, such as the Shamshir with spinning slash, the Ripple Blade with wild strikes, the Ripple Crescent Halberd with spinning slash, the Curved Great Club, and the Curved Club with barbaric roar, and I've infused the infusible weapons with occult so we can benefit from arcane scaling. They also use two kinds of shields, with one of them being the Albinauric shield, which will give us great blocking defense, and the other one a wooden shield with green foliage, which isn't in the game unfortunately. It's also worth noting that the Albinaurics have two attacks which can't be unlocked, a frost attack from the Ripple Blade and an oily spew from their mouth, alongside their cartwheel dodge not being possible. We won't be using any talismans or spells, but our stats will allow us to use any weapon we need, and I'll invest heavily into Arcane, as two of our weapons scale with that stat, and we can use the occult infusion to benefit for that investment on our other weapons on the level 137 hero. Let's also bump our endurance up to 40 so we can use our shield and a weapon of our choice with light rolling. But are we any good in battle? Starting with the Shamshir, this is a fast slicing weapon that also works brilliantly offhand and deals good damage, but the weapon art spinning slash can be slow and suffers from our low poise, making it difficult to trade attacks and finish the animation. The Ripple Blade is a fast slashing weapon, ruined by its abysmal range, which makes hitting anything not kissing you a nightmare, and the weapon art Wild Strikes has great hyper armor that's also ruined by a lack of range to hit anything further than breathing distance. But a saving grace of a weapon is the Ripple Crescent Halberd that has fantastic range, combined with a diverse moveset which scales with our arcane investment, and it can be buffed for extra utility. The Curved Club is another short weapon that struggles to hit its target, but does okay when it does, and with barbaric roar, we can turn our heavy attacks into combo attacks with great hyper armor, allowing us to trade when used at the right time. But the Great Curved Club doesn't benefit as much from the barbaric roar, as its heavy attack can be quite slow, and it's better suited for its heavy swings that can stagger enemies for good damage. The Albinaurics also use Shield Bash, but this isn't recommended as the damage is outdone by any of our weapon choices. This will all work fine in PvE, allowing you to access a range of weapons both quick, heavy and long, depending on what works best, and since most bosses can't dodge, you won't have to worry about missing your attacks. As for our issues, I'll summarise by saying that our build doesn't currently use any buffs, which could be super useful for maximising our chances of winning. Some of our weapons have extremely short range, with weapon arts that don't really work well, and I think we can get some more damage out of our setup. So let's make some adjustments. Let's keep our armor and stats the same, but use the Shamshir as a secondary weapon equipped with Stormblade, so we can have a ranged attack option available. Let's swap out the Arcane infusion on our weapon for Blood, and swap out the Curved Club's barbaric roar for Stormcaller, and the Great Curved Club for Earth Shaker, giving us two high poise, high damaging alternatives. Unfortunately, we can't swap out the weapon art on either of our Ripple Blades, but that's okay, because we can just use an extremely powerful grease for these weapons called Sleep Grease, capable of stunning an opponent for 2 solid hits once it triggers. We can also remove our shield's parry for no skill, and use the Great Jar's Arsenal, Crimson Amber Medallion +2, Erdtree Favor +2, and the Shard of Alexander, allowing you to wield the shield, Shamshir, and the weapon of your choice while light rolling. And this new setup gives us much better results, which you can mix and match to the situation. Wild Strikes is instantly useful on the Ripple Blade, as it's amazing for applying sleep on enemies who are at close range, while the Ripple Halberd can use its range to strike enemies and even build up sleep, even if the attack doesn't deal damage. On our clubs, our weapon arts have great hyper armor, which can be useful for dealing damage or finishing off enemies, and all the while building up bleed for that large burst of damage. And you can even mix and match the equipment, combining sleep and bleed for a deadly combination. But in summary, I think if every Albinauric ran this build, they wouldn't have to worry about getting farmed. By combining the power of sleep and high damaging bleed, you can counter almost any playstyle in both PvP and PvE. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and of course subscribe. This is Bitesized Otaku, and I hope you enjoyed.